Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live and our exposition or meditation on Tolle quotes. And I don't know if, I guess you can hear this. It's the it's the Heart Sutra, which is a Zen, the Prashna Paramitra Hridayam Sutram, which is a Zen chant that is chanted in all of the Zen monasteries. I've never been to one, so I understand that. And but it's the Heart Sutra, and it is the awakening of compassion. And so I wanted to talk about that today because our Tolle quote is on compassion. Let me turn this off. So let me read the quote and we'll pull this cotton ball apart. Compassion is the awareness of a deep bond between yourself and all creatures. Compassion is the awareness of a deep bond between yourself and all creatures. So let's look into this because we talk about compassion a lot. People, that's compassionate, or we feel like we're compassionate, or we want to be more compassionate, and we see compassionate people, and but we don't really, we think it's a feeling, empathy, but that's really not what compassion is. And so, why can I say this? Well, the reason I'm playing this Heart Sutra is because I had an experience with it, if you want to call it an experience. And I don't like to, and I don't usually talk about my experiences because, well, it's kind of like, aren't you special? The church lady. So, but let me share this experience. I think back when I was first getting, and this must have been 5 years ago, perhaps, when I was first got, I know what it was. See my little Buddha, my little jade blood Buddha? Well, a friend of mine went to China. I'll bring it up a little closer. I don't know if you can see it or not. See the little thing. A friend of mine, ours, went to China and to teach with the YMCA, with the Y. And during her off month, she went traveling, and she went to the edge of Tibet to a huge monastery called Shangri-La, and it was in the off season. So she stayed there for 3 or 4 days, made friends with the monk, a little monk. And while she was out at apparently the bathroom was an outhouse, and she looked down in the dirt and she found this jade Buddha. It wasn't on a necklace, it was just the jade Buddha. And I know it's authentic because it doesn't have made in China on it. So anyway, and the little monk gave her these huge mala beads, big rosewood beads, about this big. And maybe he was scooped over from carrying them all. But anyway, so she came back and she gave me those mala beads. But most importantly, she gave me this little jade, what I thought was a Buddha carved in here. So I went to, one day I was at an import-export place, and I asked the lady, what this was, and she looked at it and she said, "Oh, that's not a Buddha, that's Kuan Yin." Kuan Yin is the bodhisattva of compassion. And in China, Kuan Yin is really big. And Kuan Yin, kind of like is the Buddha's bodhisattva of Avalokiteshvara, and in the Buddha in the Buddha mythology or iconology, in the Buddha images, Indian images, you have the gods have many arms, and they're kind of abstract figures, with arms holding different boons and everything, so that the images themselves are a teaching. So the images of the gods in the Hindu tradition are non-verbal teachings. The whole philosophy is contained in the image, you see. But when Buddhism went to China, the Chinese are very practical, down-to-earth people. So the Hindu god with the arms and all of these abstract images, heavens and all this stuff, became a human being. And it also, Avalokiteshvara was male, she became female. Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion. And so this Avalokiteshvara is the bodhisattva of compassion, which the Heart Sutra is being sung by. The Heart Sutra is being sung by Avalokiteshvara or Kuan Yin. And so, wow, I had a bodhisattva here of compassion. And this is why it's kind of like blood red jade. And I've been working, and then I combined it with I did have it just with beads, but when I brought my uncle up here to live with us in his last years, his wife was who had died was a Catholic, Italian, and she had these rosaries. So I took one of her rosaries and put my bodhisattva on it. So right here, there's a little picture of Mary opening her arms. Now, Mary is the Christian bodhisattva of compassion, you see. You know, and so, and Jesus, the teaching of Jesus is all about compassion, you know. So this compassion is very interesting. But anyway, so let me share that, you know, I got interested in Kuan Yin now that I had her hanging around my neck, and she was given to me, brought to me from the buried in the ground by a Tibetan monastery. Who knows how long that has been there? Who knows who wore this before? How did it reach me? How did she find that? How did she travel all over China and found that little jade Kuan Yin? And then why did she give it to me? Anyway, so I started going around, what is this Kuan Yin? What is this Bodhisattva? And so I found the Heart Sutra on YouTube that is chanted by it's very sweet. So I began to listen to it. And when the first time I listened to it, suddenly my heart began to squeeze. My heart began to squeeze like an accordion. Really, it was the most exquisite and painful squeezing of the heart. I became the heart. And you know how accordion goes like this? It was like this Kuan Yin, it was like this goddess was taking my heart and squeezing it, and tears were gushing out of it, tears of joy and pain. The mixture, this elixir of joy and pain, joy and sorrow. Oh, don't ever stop. Oh, please stop. Don't stop. Please stop. Oh, it is too much. Don't stop. Stop. And it squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, you see. And so, and right after that, a man came in deep pain. Oh, his wife had committed. His wife had discovered she had Alzheimer's, and she killed herself. And he was filled with grief because he'd been a military officer and he'd been kind of distant, and you know, he had not been close. And now she was gone. And so he was in the deepest sorrow possible. And he came to have pictures of his wife duplicated so he could put them all over his house. So he just put her pictures all over the house, you see. And so I was helping him get the pictures together. And when he left, the Heart Sutra came back. Kuan Yin came back and squeezed my heart, and I began to just cry with this compassion of squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And so this, it happened one more time. Someone else came to the office in great pain, and again, the heart squeezed. And I guess in the yoga tradition, you say it was the heart chakra opening up. Okay, you know. But, and so that experience, and I can't call it an experience, never returned with such drama or overpowering possession, you see. But it has given me a taste of what real compassion is, you know. And so this phrase keeps coming back to me, you know, when the Buddha awakened, he said, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the most honored one." Now, what was he saying? Basically, he was saying, I am compassion. That was compassion speaking. I alone am the most honored one. That was like compassion had a voice. That was like the squeezing, joyous crying of the heart is the most honored one. Is life itself. Is that what life really, if you said, what does life feel like? Well, it must feel like that. This exquisite mixture of joy and sorrow. You see, this is the, okay, so I wrote up here, I haven't written anything else up here, but I wrote compassion is a funeral pyre. So this compassion I felt was like a funeral pyre because it just burnt me up. It just, my ego, my little thinking self, the one that's talking now, was just consumed in it, you see. And so this compassion is a elixir that is born out of the union of joy and sorrow, life and death, you see. So, you see, in our culture, in our Western culture, we say here, life is here, death is here, and, you know, we're which way are we going? We go this way or this way, you see. Well, of course, we go in this direction and we get, I got my little guy going the wrong way, but we get away from sorrow and we go towards life or pleasure or good. Okay? So everything is directed in this direction, you see, away from this, but this follows us. Whenever we grab the good, is death not far behind? Is loss and sorrow not far behind, you see? Whatever we grab also contains loss. You can't hold it, you're going to lose it, it's going to die, you see. So we're under the illusion that we can separate the two. That we've got this big, we can build a wall, see. Build a wall. Keep out death. Death can't get through, you see. And so this is what kind of like what makes our world run here. We're always buying good stuff to get away from the bad, you know. So we're always running towards the good, the pleasant, the comfort, and running from the uncomfortable, the unpleasant, the sorrow, you see. We don't put them together. We separate the two. Get rid of this, get that, you see. And that's kind of like the driving energy, the driving intention of our world. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that's the way the world, and Buddha called this samsara, the world of samsara, the wheel of samsara. The wheel of samsara. You know, it's kind of like The wheel of samsara. The treadmill. The hamster on a wheel. Running towards life, death chasing us, you see. But what happens when death catches us? What happens when death catches up, or loss catches up? Well, this is, I think, what I'm trying to describe here, that when opposites meet, and joy and sorrow are opposites, they're values, in a sense. Joy is a value, sorrow is a negative value. But when opposites meet, and they are held together as one, not avoided, not resisted, not struggled with. I don't want that. I don't want, you see. When they are held together, when they are accepted as one, something magical happens. There is the elixir, the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail happens when the opposites are held together in the same cup. And this opposites that create this Holy Grail is creative. It's life itself. Life is creative. Life is one. So when we hold the opposites together, we create the oneness of life. And in Zen, it's called one taste. Not two tastes, sorrow and joy, joy and sorrow. Not two, but one. One taste is joy-sorrow, you see. So joy-sorrow is the transcendent one that holds within it the duality of life and death, you see. And that is what I think the Buddha was saying when he said, throughout heaven and earth, that's the duality, the good and the bad, the spirit and the flesh, whatever the opposites are, heaven and earth, the duality. Throughout this duality of form, of manifestation, I alone am the most honored one. The one, you see, holds both heaven and earth in it, you see. And when this happens to us, we never forget it. When this happens to us, it is a transformative taste. And we all have these one taste moments, but we don't really put it into a larger context because the Western map has no place for it. The Western map, it's not on the Western map. In the Western logical map of form and material, time and space, everything is a thing. No two things can become one thing. That's magic. Or alchemy, you see. So this is alchemy. It's beyond logic. It's beyond duality. It's beyond morality. It's beyond good and evil. You see, because we like to think life is good, death is evil. But compassion is beyond good and evil. So it puts them together. Compassion is good/evil. So we're all this one taste, but we perceive ourselves as being two. I'm this and not that. So compassion, as Tolle is talking about it here, compassion is awareness, and awareness is one taste. It's not two. Awareness is one of a deep bond between yourself and all creatures. But this is not an awareness of a bond. In compassion, you are the other creature. You are the suffering. And so the joy comes. How do you get joy out of, and this is not empathy, like, oh, I feel your pain. Because that's still separation. I feel your pain. You and I are different. In the compassion that we're talking about here, there is no separation between you as an it and I. I and you as an it are a greater one, a life one that holds us two together as one, as joy, sorrow. And it can't be separated, you see. When the two become one, you can't separate them. Yet they're still two, but they can't be separated. And that's the mystery That is the ultimate mystery of life. That is one, yet it's two. But the one cannot be separated. So this is a dynamic unity. Compassion is dynamic. So when compassion awakens, you're going to be doing something. And this is always in the news. Somebody's son is killed or lost or something, and suddenly they become activated in helping others. They become a dynamo of energy that transmutes that sorrow into the joy of service. So you can see it in these people who are they're suddenly on TV because they've started this foundation or they've started this movement or some great movement. All comes out of compassion. When compassion is born, it is going to generate life. It's going to generate movements. It can generate a religion, you see. So Buddha generated a whole teaching. Jesus generated a whole teaching out of his compassion, out of his funeral pyre. Compassion is a funeral pyre. And Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion, is all about the firebird, the phoenix bird, the firebird that rises out of its own ashes. So compassion is like that. It's life rising out of its own ashes, out of death. And that's what Jesus is all about. Life rising out of death, you see. So Jesus is the firebird of compassion. But we separate them. Oh, we say the cross and the death. And oh, you wait 3 days and you get the resurrection. They're separated, you see. But it's the same thing. Boom. So this is the thunderclap of compassion. Is when life here, I want life, and death, oh, that's bad, I don't want that. Put it together. Bam. The whole earth shakes with the thunder, the word. God is born when these two hands come together, you see. So this one taste, this non-dual, talk about non-dual this, non-dual that. Non-dual is when the two hands come together. Bam. And it transforms you. This is not an objective thing. This is not about doing it objectively. It is an interior, radical revolution and a shift from the mind of dual thinking, I and you and I and it, to the heart that is one. So it's a shift to the heart. The heart awakens in joy/sorrow. The sorrow can win. So when Buddha says that life is suffering, he means basically life dies. That's suffering. That's loss. Everybody suffers. Animals suffer. We die. We lose. Everything, we seek pleasure, but we get pain. Sorrow. Life is that. But also when we separate ourselves from it, I'm here and I don't want that. When that separation comes in, that duality, Buddha says that's dukkha, that's suffering. The suffering is not so much that life dies, the suffering is from our separation from it, our avoidance of it. So the way out of suffering, the cessation of suffering, is to go into the funeral pyre, is to turn and run into the fire of suffering, is to go into death instead of running from it, you see. You turn, and if the dogs are chasing you, if the dogs are running at you, instead of running from it, turn and run into the dog. See what happens. I don't know, but this whole idea of, all right, last night, we see this on TV all the time. So I'm watching Wallander. Okay, that's our latest British mystery. And so, in the end, Wallander refused to carry a gun because he had shot somebody. And he had to go confront this criminal, this murderer. And so the murderer pulls up a gun and he's shaking like that, you see. He's cornered. And Wallander has no gun. So he just walks into the fire. He just walks into death. And the murderer can't hold, you see. So this whole, we see this in metaphorically everywhere. The hero who gets the Medal of Honor, Why does he get it? He ran into the funeral pyre. He ran into the fire. The fire, the first responder who gets the medal, he ran into the fire. 9/11. They didn't run out of the building, they ran into it. So we honor this when we see it. And basically it's all compassion. When you run into the fire, when you run into your own pain, you have pain, you're angry, you have this negativity, embrace it. Walk into it. Say, who are you? I accept you. I have compassion for you. I have compassion for your own pain. I love you. I love this pain. I accept this pain. This pain is who I am. I accept it. I embrace my own pain. And see what happens. Because normally, I've got this pain. I want to get out of it. I shouldn't have this pain. I'm angry about being angry. I'm really irritated because I'm irritated. I'm supposed to be this spiritual being, and now I'm pissed off. This shouldn't be. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be upset. I shouldn't be anxious. Embrace it. Turn into it. Accept it. Who are you, this feeling, this suffering? Who is this suffering? Let me hold you. Let me embrace you. Let me be one with you, you see. And there, right inside, the great alchemy happens. And the joy happens because you're now one with life. You're now one with yourself. You're not divided against yourself now. You are one. And if you're one with yourself, you're one with all life. So the oneness starts within you. So accept and have compassion for your own suffering, for your own sorrow. And bam, the Heart Sutra kicks in. Bam, the hands come together. And all of life then opens her arms, you see. And flowers fall from the trees, like when the Buddha awoke, you see. So this compassion is not about, oh, I should be compassionate, or I wish I could be more compassionate, and all that. No, 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 you see. It's all about surrendering to your own pain. Surrendering to and removing the barrier between you and your own pain, your own sorrow, our own shame, our own minotaur, our own pain body, within, you see. There is the portal to compassion. So when I accept it and go into it, I go into the funeral pyre, and the phoenix bird of compassion rises out of that as an elixir of joy and sorrow. The sorrow is there, but the joy is there because you are at one with yourself. And you are at one with others. In this fire of compassion that consumes duality, that consumes separation. So, anyway, well, that really, I need to put this Heart Sutra on more when I talk. Because check this Heart Sutra out. Prashna Paramitra Hridayam Sutram. And it was written by, there are a lot of them on YouTube's, Wang Hu Yin. Anyway, you'll hear this one. And the Heart Sutra, and you'll find the translation to it. It just moves you into the funeral pyre of duality and burns it up and leaves your heart in an accordion squeezing elixir of joy and sorrow. So, thanks for dropping in.